Joining us on YouTube, Facebook, via your BBA portal, or on our website. We are so glad that you're here with us tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bree, founder of the Beauty Biz Agency, and I am so excited to hang out with you. This is where we really just take a break from the overwhelm. We slow things down and talk like real salon leaders about what's actually going on inside of our businesses. And as always, I've got my co-founder, co-host, and ride or die bestie, Chandra, here with me. Hey, friend, how are you?
Hello. Doing good.
Awesome. You ready to get into this?
Ready.
Well, tonight we are going to give everybody a behind the scenes look at one of our most requested resources inside of the Beauty Biz Agency, and that is our new Hire Starter Kit. This is a foundational tool that we created for salon and spa owners who are hiring or maybe even just thinking about hiring and want to make sure that they're doing it the right way with real structure, clarity, and long-term success in mind. Because here's something that Chandra and I see all the time. Salon owners, they get to the point where they need help, right? They're drowning in guests, they're running low on capacity, and they really know that it's time to bring somebody in. So they do. But because there is no structure, that new hire, they show up with total chaos. They're shadowing without direction. There's no training timeline, no benchmarks, no clear expectations. And even though they were hired to take the pressure off of someone, it ends up feeling like more work. So if you have ever hired someone and thought, why do I still feel like I am doing everything? Or I don't even know how to get them trained without losing my mind, then this tonight is for you. Chandra, have you ever felt this way?
Oh, yeah. Many times. I feel like it's one of the hardest things to figure out sometimes as an owner, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It's really difficult. And I think people they just don't realize everything that goes into it before they take the first step. I know with my first hire, I was that way. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just going to let them do what I do and they're going to be fine, right? But that's not the way it works. It's definitely not.
No, definitely.
So tonight, I think we will walk people through kind of a sneak peek or a little preview of what our new hire starter kit looks like, what it is, kind of why it matters, and exactly how they can use it to create a team that actually helps their businesses grow instead of adding more stress to their plate. That being said, let's get into it. So the first part is why most owners end up babysitting instead of leading. We've got to start here. And I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart that I have. Shadowing is not a training system. It's not. That might have been the norm 10 years ago, where a new hire, they followed someone around for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was, hoping to absorb enough through osmosis. But that's not leadership anymore. And honestly, it's not fair to the people that you're bringing in. Your employees, they deserve better than that. If they have committed to your business, your brand, your culture, they deserve a structured training program that's going to help them grow with confidence. One that's going to teach them not just what to do, but why it matters and how you do it in your business. The truth is, most salon and spa owners, we weren't taught how to lead. I know I wasn't. Were you, Chandra?
No, not at
No.
all.
We're taught how to grind, right? How to work our freaking butts off, how to stay booked. But no one really handed us a playbook for training and developing a team. So when we finally get to the point where we can hire somebody or hire help, we kind of just default to shadowing because we don't really know what else to do. And at first, that's going to feel fine. It really does. You're showing them how things work, they're helping out. But slowly, I think the cracks, they really start to show. You realize they're only half learning, they are mimicking, but they're not really understanding everything that goes into it. They're probably asking the same questions over and over. They're nervous to really take initiative. And you're starting to feel like you are babysitting instead of leading. That, in my opinion, Chandra, is where resentment kicks in. And it kicks in from both sides, right?
Yeah.
The owner is probably thinking, why did I hire someone if I still feel like I'm doing everything? Because that's how I felt.
Mhm.
But it's not about that. It's about the structure, right? That they were or weren't given. That's what it all boils down to. Because structure, I don't care what anybody says, that's what builds confidence in people. Structure is what allows someone to learn to take ownership and to actually start moving or helping to move your business forward. And honestly, all of that structure, it starts before day one. Chandra, what do you think happens to us as owners when we keep hiring without structure? Like, what does it do to our confidence or even our leadership energy?
Oh, I think it's frustrating. I think you start to feel like you just can't find anybody who wants to work. I hear that a lot. Or we can't find the right people and you're just constantly having turnover. And you start to feel like that resentment, but you also start to feel like, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with my salon? What is wrong with me? Why can't I keep anybody? But you never fully look at the bigger picture. Instead, you just kind of internalize that and just act like everybody's out to get you or something. And I think that's what happens a lot. And we hear that a lot because there's so much negativity sometimes towards employees because of these experiences, even though it's not usually the employee's fault. It is the systems and it is the things that they have in place to train them to do the job correctly. So yeah, 100%.
Definitely. And I think in order to kind of go through this, we need to talk about what people need to do before your new hire even starts. So, what needs to be in place before someone new walks through your door? Inside of our new hire starter kit that we have at BBA, we outlined 7 essential pieces that every single salon or spa owner should have prepared. And I don't mean just that kind of figure it out type of thing. I mean, written down, clear, and ready to go. First up is going to be your job description. And that is going to actually outline the role, not just the title, but the role. What are they responsible for? What's expected of them week to week, right? How will they know that they're doing well? Most owners skip this and then they feel really, really frustrated when someone doesn't meet invisible expectations. I'm telling you, girl, invisible expectations drive me nuts. I have had the privilege alongside of you of coaching hundreds of salon and spa owners. And this is one thing that they all have in common is invisible expectations. Honestly, I did that in the beginning as well. Did you?
Oh yeah, for sure. You think they could just read your mind? Why can't they?
100%.
They should
Why
just
not,
know,
right?
right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The second thing that you need is you need service standards and timing benchmarks. This is something that people miss all the time. This is going to help set the tone early because they need to know like how long services should take and what your standard of excellence looks like. What we forget a lot of time as owners is our standard of excellence is way different than their previous employer or even beauty school, right, Chandra?
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely different.
How do you think those differ so much?
I think you don't really learn in school what it's like to actually be behind the chair, be in the salon. You don't really learn that you kind of maybe have to start at the bottom and work your way up, or you don't learn what all those expectations are because in school it's just so different, and they don't teach that stuff. They don't let them know. They don't prep them for working in a salon that's structured or underneath like an owner. They just don't prep them for that. And I think then they get into the salon and then they're like shocked and surprised that they have to do all these things.
Yeah, 100%. I've had people come from school that felt that way. I've also had people come from other salons and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, we just kind of did whatever when it came to consultations, we did it our own way, right? Or we did this or we did that. And so it's very, very important. The third thing that you have to have is a guest journey map. What do you want the client experience to look like from check in to check out? How do you want your new hire to support that? Consistency here is going to be absolutely everything, especially if you're growing a team and you want the brand to feel really cohesive. I cannot stress this enough. That is so very important. Chandra, why do you think that that cohesiveness is a must for every salon and spa owner out there.
I mean, I think if you want to build a sustainable clientele base or retention, you have to provide a service that is consistent every single time. And that guest journey is what that does. You have it set up from start to finish, what's expected of every employee. And by doing this, your clients know they have confidence in your business, in your team. They have confidence in you as the owner, and they want to support that. And they want to support you because they trust your company. And when you don't have that, and it's like those expectations, maybe they came in once and it was amazing, and then they came in again and it wasn't the same, and then they didn't come back again. And so you're going to work twice as hard to build that sustainable business when you don't have any type of guest journey procedure in place.
Absolutely. And with the guest journey map or guest journey experience, one thing that I think needs to be talked about is something that we hear quite frequently from salon and spa owners, commission salon and spa owners, is when they lose a stylist or a technician, they are scared that they are going to lose all of that client base. Here's the thing. When you have a guest experience journey that is consistent from technician to technician, there is a high chance, sure, those clients may leave for one time, two times, but eventually they're going to come back because regardless of who they see in your salon, it's going to be the same, right? And they get very, very used to that. That is one reason that it's really, really good to bounce clients around a little bit if you can. Chandra, explain. People think we're crazy when we say that, but explain why that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, we have in our salon open, we call it an open chair policy. And that means, whoever can get the client in can get the client in. And our team is trained and they support each other. It's about that team culture. It's about working together and growing each other, not just the business, not just themselves specifically, but as a whole, the whole bigger picture, right? And so when we have clients that see other stylists, nobody gets upset about it. Everybody's fine because they understand, like, as long as that client is staying within these walls, we're all good and we all work together. And clients do it all the time. They like a bunch of our team, so they want to go and sit in this person's chair and talk to this person, and next time they want to book with somebody else. And it also eliminates that sort of that kind of cattiness that a lot of salons have, where people are like, oh, they're stealing my client. Oh, they're going to try to steal my clients. Nobody tries to do that. Everybody works together. And I think when you can do that, you build that client loyalty, not only to the team, but more to the business itself. Like you said, when someone leaves, they might go out there for one or two visits, but they will pretty much always return because they know what to expect from your business. And they know that all of your team members perform at that same level. And so you're definitely going to build that loyalty so much more, and not only with your team, but also with, your client base. So I think it's huge.
It is huge and it makes a big difference. We have seen or we have retained a huge amount of clients. We will have people that leave to go solo, go booth rent, suite rent, whatever it is. And their clients, usually about at the 3 or 4 month mark, will end up coming back to the salon because of the consistency. So it's
Mhm.
really, really important. I want to pause for just a second, guys. If you have questions, we will absolutely get to the Q&A in just a little bit, so bear with us, but this stuff is really important, so keep pushing those questions through and we'll get to them. Okay, the fourth thing is your team policies and performance expectations. These should be documented, they should be reviewed, and they should be signed. Clarity is going to create accountability. If you have ever thought, I thought that they knew that. This is where that issue gets solved 100%, right? Chandra,
Mhm.
why is this so important?
Oh my gosh, they need to know what the expectations are, and they need to know what they're supposed to do. And I'm guilty of it too. I would just kind of give an overview and be like, hey, you got this, you know what you're supposed to do. And then I'm like, what are they doing? That is nothing I just said. But then I realized after a while, like, that I didn't really say it in a very complete way. I just sort of was like, hey, you need to do this, this, and this, and then, move on to whatever. And it's like, okay, why didn't they listen? Because there's no solid foundation. There's no
Right.
solid training in place. You can't expect them to to work at the level you want them to if you don't have that in place and structured out, and standard operating procedures like we talk about all the time, or job descriptions and things that are listed out that they have to do for their position. If you don't do that, then you can't expect them to perform where you want them to perform.
1,000,000%. You know that old saying, I'm a beautician, not a magician? Like,
Mhm.
it's no different, right? We don't expect clients to be able to read our minds. Like you said earlier, our employees cannot do that either. And so we have to be very, very distinct in exactly what our expectations are. And when we're able to do that for each and every employee and for ourselves as a business, everything starts to shift. So it's really, really important. All right, fifth, this is a little off topic, but it's important, logins and like their tools checklist. So don't leave people hanging on how to access your systems, your booking software, your color formulations, whatever that looks like, your Wi-Fi, your locker assignments. This stuff, it needs to be set up before they show up. Here's something that we find quite frequently. All of the salon and spa owners, they are so invested in everything else that they forget this small stuff. And people need all of this to be accessible before they ever step foot in, right? So this is stuff that you need to have prepared ahead of time. Chandra, how many times have you forgotten something like this and looked back like a week past the start date and been like, oh my gosh, you're still using so and so's login. Let me help you.
Mhm. Oh yeah, definitely happened.
Yeah, I am or used to be notorious for this because it wasn't part of my hiring plan. And so I would look back and I would be like, okay, they've been here like 11 days. They don't have their login. So then I can't track everything that's really going on. I got to fix this ASAP. So now, because all of my onboarding and training and education is via their portal, I'm able to give them their login before they even start so they can start going through things before they step foot into our studio. Huge difference. Huge. Okay. Number 6 is a 30, 60, and 90-day training plan. This is the roadmap. It breaks their learning up into phases. So you're not trying to teach everything in week 1 and then wondering, why did they forget? Why are they still lost? Why are they not doing what I said? That is so important. So many people, Chandra, either do this. They either expect people to learn it within 14 days or they let it last like 10, 12 months, which is defeating the purpose of hiring somebody because they're not generating revenue. Why is this 30, 60, and 90-day training plan so important?
Well, I think it not only gives the new hire a clear plan of what's going to happen with them, so they understand exactly, okay, in this first 30 days, I need to know XYZ, this is going to be expected of me. In the next 30 days, this is going to happen. And so it gives them a clear picture of how their training is supposed to go, which also helps them feel more relaxed, more comfortable, and less stressed being in a new position. Plus, it keeps you on track. Like when I started doing this and I would schedule out like their 30-day, 60-day, 90-day kind of check-ins, it kept me on track too to make sure that I was following through with my side of the deal of making sure they knew all these things I told them they needed to know after 30 days and that they already were doing, whatever after 60, and making sure that they're getting the job right. Like when you don't have that plan of doing that, they could go months and months and months and months, like you said, and be doing something totally wrong or not really understand what they're supposed to be doing. And all that time went by, and now you've developed a whole bunch of bad habits that you have to go back and try to fix.
Mm.
And when you can head that off right away, it's just so much easier. So it definitely is important to do it that way and have it laid out in place, like on their orientation day, knowing we're going to start here, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And you can weed out the bad eggs a lot quicker too with
Exactly.
that. So if you can tell they're not going to be a good fit, then it helps you weed that out much quicker than waiting a whole year before you realize that.
Yeah, because so many people waste so much money on that, right? So it's not just for your employee, it's for you as a business owner. And that's really, really important. We have seen people keep new hires for, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months before they let them go because they think that they're finally going to get it. This is going to tell you a lot within the first 30 and 6. There have been people that I have let go before the 30-day mark because it is so detailed and so set out that I know they're not going to work. They're not going to cut it. They're not going to fit. And so I let them go and start that hiring process all over again. I think that's really important. All right, seventh, and I think one of the most important is your weekly check-in rhythm. These aren't formal meetings. They're not like an in-depth one-on-one meeting, but they have to be consistent. It's your moment to lead, to redirect, to answer questions, and to really, really reinforce your culture that you're trying to build. When when this happens, you are going to find out so much. If you will actually sit there with your new hire for just a few minutes, you can learn so much. Chandra, what are some things that you have learned from new hires with these weekly check-in rhythms that you learn now that you didn't when you didn't have them?
I think the biggest thing I learn is sort of how to work with them. Like when I can see sort of how their brain works, what's the best way to teach them or train them. I think that's going to be the biggest thing I learned from those weekly check-ins, because
Yeah.
you kind of do everything the same for everyone, but then you have to tailor it specifically for different personalities, different learning types and things
Yeah.
like that. And when you do those weekly check-ins, it gives you that opportunity to sort of learn that about that specific employee and know what you can do differently if you need to do something differently for their type of personality. And I think that's probably the most helpful thing for me. And then just knowing if they're getting the information or not, like then okay, I've got to redirect, try this a different way, maybe they're not a good fit. Like that's how you can kind
Yeah.
of get that figured out much quicker from those weekly check-ins.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they are so important, and it's something that I really like to do as well, not to just figure out how they're doing and what they like and what they don't like, but figuring out who they are personality-wise, right? Are they going to be a good fit? When you get to that 30-day mark, you can really see, okay, are they going to integrate well? Are they not? Like things of that nature. And so it really opens your eyes in a lot of ways. When you're able to meet with them 4 times, one-on-one, individually, you can really tell how that's going to go and how it's not going to go. So that's really, really important. Point of the matter is, when these 7 things are in place, you are no longer going to scramble when it comes to doing things. You are going to lead like the CEO you were meant to be. Now, not harping on this, but this is one of the reasons that it is so important to not be behind the chair full time and to be able to create this stuff for your team members. So, Chandra, I'm curious, which one of these 7 do you think most owners think that they've kind of got, but when we actually start looking under the hood of their business, they're not even close?
I mean, I think it's that onboarding structure. They think they have things in place, but then when they actually start training somebody, they really don't have anything, or it's very minimal and not enough information. And that structure can solve 90% of those hiring problems in the beginning if you have all those things laid out and in place.
100%. They just throw shadowing. Here you go. Here it is. This is what we're doing. And
Mhm.
that's not going to get you anywhere. So let's talk about what their first 90 days should actually look like. So now that you've got all of your prep work done, because we just gave that to you, let's talk about how you should train someone effectively from day one. The first 30 days, they aren't about throwing them behind the chair. That's not what it is. We see owners go both ways, right? They either have them shadow for a year or they just throw them out to the wolves and they're like, here you go. See you later. They have to build a foundation. The first 30 days is really an observation phase for both you and for them. They are shadowing full services. So shadowing is important, but it's not everything. They are watching how the client flow works. They are learning how to run your front desk. They are starting that mannequin work on basic services. They're not rushing into production. They're really just kind of soaking up the culture and expectations of your brand. That is so important. Dates 31 through 60, this is where, in my opinion, Chandra, the real skill building kind of happens. Now they are performing kind of simple services, whether it's on models or clients that you've had forever, whatever it is, they are receiving feedback. using evaluation forms. They are role playing things like rebooking and retail conversations. And they're really slowly stepping into that supported service roles with your guidance, I guess is the best way to put it. This is where confidence kind of becomes in play. It kind of begins to form, I guess I would say, and where you get to kind of coach them through both the technical aspects of skill and the communication style that they need to have in order to represent your brand and your business. Then days 30 or 61 through 90, I kind of treat this as the integration phase, or that's what we teach in BBA, right? They begin seeing real clients independently for pre approved services. Obviously, you'd be surprised though, right, Chandra? When you go through a phase like what we're teaching, they are approved for so many more services at this point than they would ever be if there was no plan in place. You are monitoring benchmarks like timing, product usage, and they're joining like everything that your team is doing, the meetings, the daily huddles, just like any other team member. The goal by 90 days is independence, not perfection. Hear me loud and clear. Independence. Nobody's going to be perfect at 90 days. And at the end of this phase, you sit down for a full evaluation and you decide together what the next step in their development path is going to look like. There are some employees, Chandra, that I have that I'm like, you're good to go. You are approved on all services. I trust you. Here you go. And there's others where I have to say, okay, we're going to keep your schedule looking like this for now. We're going to work on this together, and then we are going to reevaluate. So, Chandra, from your experience, what is one mistake that salon owners make during that kind of middle phase, like maybe the 30 to 60 day mark, when it feels like the new hire should have it by now, but they don't?
I mean, I think the biggest mistake is they just throw them out on the floor and they don't necessarily actually make sure what they do or they don't have it because they're rushing that training and they're just trying to get them out, or they're holding them back by not kind of, they might be getting it. They
Yep.
might just need, a little bit more, but they're keeping them back and making them do a lot of other things first. And I think that biggest is really just not evaluating exactly where that employee's at during that time and then coming up with a good action plan for them because everybody's different. Some people are going to move really fast. Some people are going to take a really long time. You don't want them to take a really long time, but they'll take a longer time. And you just don't want them to be stuck in that phase. And I see that all the time where owners throw them out and then they're annoyed because they're having redos or they're not getting the consultation process right. And they're not doing
Yep.
things right. Or they have team members leave because they were holding them back and they weren't allowing them to move forward. So I definitely think that's the biggest mistake in that phase.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If I could give anybody advice, it would be one of the most powerful pieces of this entire system is the weekly breakdown. Because inside of our new hire starter kit, we show people exactly what to focus on week by week. Because training someone without weekly structure, it's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You almost can't do it, right? So you have to break this down. Week one, it's about orientation and shadowing. Week two is brand training and understanding the SOPs. Week three, it's light hands-on support, mannequin practice. Week four, that's their first model service. Check in with you to review the progress. Those things are so important because every single week it's going to build confidence, not only with your technician, but with you as the owner. Each week is going to build independence, and each week is going to help them feel like they are growing. They're not just an outsider trying to survive. I don't know about you, Chandra, but I've been in that position before where I felt like I was an outsider just trying to survive in a new salon and a new culture. Horrible, horrible feeling, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I think if you go through these weeks, this is how you retain people. It's how you build loyalty and it's how you lead. Chandra, I have a question for you. If a stylist is really quiet or if they're nervous during this entire phase, what is something that the owner can do to kind of bring them out of their shell and keep them moving forward?
I mean, one thing that I actually do when we kind of notice this is I have a couple of stylists in my salon who've been there for a while, and they really are immersed in our culture. And we kind of try to pair sometimes them up with a mentor in the beginning so that they can feel a little bit more comfortable. Those mentors, we call them, they can really kind of bring them under their wing, kind of maybe help them at a slower pace if they're just somebody that's timid and not able to like be thrown into the fire with everybody else. And so kind of just walking them through it a little bit slower, and just making sure that they have someone that they feel like comfortable with, that they can connect with. And I mean, it can be the owner, but I feel like in some ways it's almost less intimidating and it feels more comfortable when it can be another team member who's very welcoming and very open to that person, and just really trying to help them find their way and become part of your team. Oh,
Can you hear me?
I don't know.
Sorry.
Now I can
I
hear you.
think that
I was
makes
like,
a
wait.
huge difference, right? It's something about
Yeah.
their peers being involved with them. It also gets them into that culture so much quicker, which I think is really, really important. One of the last parts that I want to talk about is the reflection, because I think this is where real development happens. So, this is the part that I think probably 90% of salon owners skip, but it's where the best coaching happens. So at that 30 or 60-day mark, 90-day mark, wherever, you've got to be asking both yourself and your new hire so many reflective questions. What part of the guest experience do you feel most comfortable in? Where do you still feel unsure? What goals do you want to hit by day 90? Right? You've got to ask your employee that. And then ask yourself, what strengths have I actually seen in them? Are there any early red flags or patterns that we need to address now so they aren't hanging on later on? Have I truly supported and led them, or have I just kind of crossed my fingers and hoped that they would catch on? Guys, this kind of reflection, this kind of check in, this is how you stop people from quietly checking out of your business. And it's really the part that is most overlooked, but it's the most important part. If you are not creating space for reflection during your training process for both you and your new hire, you are going to miss the signs when things are off. Chandra said this earlier. Or worse, you are going to wait until they've been there 90 days or 6 months and realize that they were never really set up to succeed in the first place. A lot of times, it's not about them not being a good fit, it's about them not being set up to succeed in the first place. That is the power of structure. It doesn't just create clarity, it gives you checkpoints for development, feedback, and retention. And when you lead this way, you're not just training better, you are building a team that actually wants to stay, that wants to buy into your business, and that wants to support you for a really, really long time. Chandra, what is one of your favorite or best reflection questions that you've either ever asked or ever heard an owner ask to a new hire that really kind of shifted the relationship or direction?
I mean, I think that I usually like to ask just sort of, I mean, I guess it's like a reflection, but just how has the last 30 days been? Like as far as, have you fit into the culture very well? Do you feel like you're part of the team? Do you feel like you're missing anything? Just kind of really just a culture check-in more than anything, because I think I can train most of the time on the technical side if they're struggling in a technical part of, their service provide whatever they're doing, hair or spa or whatever that looks like. I can usually train that technical side, but when it comes to
Right.
that culture piece, I really like to make sure that they're fitting into our culture more than anything else in that reflective time.
I agree with that. That's something that you and I always say to each other. Like, you can teach skill. I use this all the time, right? My husband's bald. I could teach him about hair. Like, easy. But the culture fit, it's what's really, really important. And I think that is awesome. All right, guys. So we do have a free resource. Chandra, can you drop that in the chat for all of our amazing watchers out
Yes.
there?
Give me
And
just a minute.
while we are doing that, let's switch gears for just a minute and get into some of the listener questions. We actually have some that we pulled from our last BBA live that we're going to get to. But if you guys have any, please drop them in the chat. We will get to them. We are trying to look at our website. We're trying to look at YouTube. We're trying to look at Facebook and all the other platforms so that we can get to everything.
Well, and
So let's
I do
go
see a
ahead.
couple of them in here, so I can kind
Yeah,
of read
let's
them
go with
off.
those first.
Yeah. So we have someone ask, how does a stylist keep their own identity or style? So I think this is when we were talking about kind of making everything cohesive and very much the
Yeah.
same. So yeah, so that would be, I think, a good one. I mean, for me, we always encourage our identity, like our stylists to have their personality and their identity. So we want the service itself to be very cohesive throughout the salon, through no matter which service provider they go to. But we still want them to have their own sort of flair, their own thing that they do. And that's actually one of the things that does make a lot of the clients like going to other stylists in the salon, because they like all their different personalities and how they feel when they sit sometimes in those different chairs. And so you don't want to diminish that in any way. Like, you want to encourage that, if anything, but obviously we still want our process to be the same across the board, no matter who's doing it, if that makes sense. Hopefully that kind of answered that. Do you have
Yeah, I
anything
agree with that
in there?
100%. I think there's a way to create standard operating procedures, right? Like expectations and things that everybody has to live by, and have each other pull their own flair or personality into it. One of the best ways to kind of coach through this is by role playing. So create that consultation process, create that SOP for front desk check in, for whatever it is, and then have your team role play it. Give them a script that you would like them to kind of stick by, but have them put it into their own words. And that is going to allow their personality to come through. That way you can tell, all right, they're going through the expectations that we have as a brand. However, they're putting their own thing into it. I actually love this because there are some people on my team that are very, very serious. And then there's me, right? This goofy, like sarcastic type of person. And so we're completely different when it comes to things. However, the service, exactly the same, regardless. Conversation, a little bit different, but service, absolutely the same. Chandra and I laugh about this all the time, but you could blindfold somebody in our salons, and if they didn't speak, you wouldn't know who was giving the service because it's so clear in the way that we do things. Now, when they talk, obviously it's going to be different, right? But that's kind of how you want things done.
Yep.
Anything else we got in the chat right now?
Yeah. So we had someone ask, what platform do you use for training or onboarding?
There are a ton of them out there. Anything from Google Classroom to Attractwell to School to, there are so many. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have a very low budget, which a lot of salon and spa owners do, because we're not great with our numbers and great with our money, look for whatever is cheaper or on the free side, and use that in the beginning. Remember, your training and onboarding can always get better as you evolve, but you need to start somewhere. It's not about perfection, it's about starting. And so Google Classroom, if you have, what is it, a Google account or a,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. If you have a Google Workspace, which
there you go.
most people do, right? Like,
Yeah,
you usually are paying for that anyways. So,
that's
and
usually
Google
free to
Classroom
you,
is
so you can use
free.
it. So I would start somewhere like that. And then you can move into something different like School or Attractwell or Kajabi or any of the, there are a million out there. There's also a lot out there right now that are giving you free trials for like 3 or 4 months. So just look around, shop around. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. One of my favorite things to look for, though, when I'm looking at a platform is, can I gamify things? Can I make things fun for my team members? Because the last thing you want them to do is sit in front of a screen and feel like they are just being lectured to. We almost need to take it back to like that kindergarten mark, to where they're able to play and have fun and enjoy while they're learning. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. And then we got another one. What does a new hire schedule look like? 30, 60 to 90, and being transparent from the beginning, it says.
Yeah,
So,
so our if you are still watching and you've grabbed our free resource, that's going to kind of walk you through every single bit of it. But It's going to be really, really important. I think we talked about this just a little bit, Chandra, but do you want to go through your first 30, 60, and 90 days?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of hard for, well, it's not hard, but it's different for everyone, right? Because it really just depends on your services you offer, your business, and
Right.
kind of how you're structuring it. But just to kind of give you a good example, so we spend our first 30 days really culture building, immersing them into our culture, and then working with them on basic services. So they'll be assisting in the beginning. We teach them how to assist. We teach them all those sort of ins and outs of the salon. We teach them the front desk in that first 30 days. And then we start with basic services. So it might be like teaching them how to do a blowout, teaching them how to do, something that's just very easy, maybe applying like a retouch, color retouch, things like that. And then we start clearing them to perform those services on models or clients, depending on where they're at in the next 30 days. So in that 60-day mark, they can start doing more services, kind of getting cleared for certain services. And then also during that time, we're still fine tuning their process, right? So that's where we really dive really deep into our guest journey experience, how they have to conduct that, what's expected of them, how that needs to look. That way, once they're in that model client phase in that 60 days, they're really starting to perform that guest
Yeah.
experience on real people instead of just like mannequins and things like that. And then in that 90 days is kind of really the time to sum up anything they might still be struggling with. If there's any services that are more advanced, that might be where we might throw in hair extensions or something that's a little bit more advanced, not part of the basic services. And then it also might be our time to really dive into their career path, their benchmarks, things like that, because in that first 30 to 60 days, we're just trying to get them moving behind the chair. They know kind of an overview already of what that career path looks like. But in that 90 days, we start diving into exactly tracking it, really them understanding how to do all those things. So it's going to be set up differently, probably for, every different type of business to some degree. It's what you need and what you want them doing first. But that's kind of hopefully helpful, good little like overview of just sort of how you can set that up and things that you can put in that first 90 days.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And our free resource is going to help with that tremendously. One thing
Mhm.
that I want to add to that is make sure that you have some sort of platform, like we were just talking about, where they can go through your onboarding and your education. This is what allows the owner to step back a little bit, not have to be so hands on or so involved, and allows your team member to learn at their convenience or at their own pace. So you want things like your culture, what your services look like, what your consultation process looks like. All of that needs to be filmed and it needs to be created into a portal that your employees are logging into and they're able to see. Very, very important. All right. If you don't have any more questions, I got some.
All right, I have just one more, but I think
No,
this one
you're
might
good.
need more of a different conversation. She's trying to build a team from scratch. Any advice? There's so much advice, but I think definitely starting with the free resource will be a good place to go. And
Yeah.
we have a ton of those on our website as well, because there's a lot to unpack with that one. But I do think, we could definitely help with that. You could always reach out to us too and set up a call. But we've got a
Yes.
ton of free resources you could take advantage of to help you in that area.
Yeah, 100%. I would say set up a free strategy call. Let's kind of talk
Mhm.
and see what your business looks like, what it actually needs. The one thing that I will tell you wholeheartedly that I wish somebody would have told me is get systems in place before you ever make a hire. Know exactly what your commission structure is going to be, what your KPIs and benchmarks are going to be, and have at least some of the systems in place. You don't need all of them. Your new employee can help you build some of them, but those things are going to be very, very important. And regardless of what anybody else tells you, they need to be uniquely created from your business standpoint, your business viewpoint, expenses, things of that nature. Do not copy and paste anybody's commission structure or KPIs and benchmarks. Very, very important.
Mhm. Yep.
All right. So here's one we got. My team is great at doing hair, but they don't seem to care about the numbers at all. How do I get them to take KPIs seriously? Go for it, Chandra.
I mean, I think that's part of the job, right? Like you got to train them on that, and they don't take it seriously. I mean, I didn't when I first started doing hair. I just want to do hair. I didn't want to have to pay attention to average tickets and things like that. But I also really wanted to make money, and in order for me to understand how to fully make money, I needed to know those things. And so I would say really sitting them down and having those conversations about where do they want to, what are their goals, like tie it to their goals. Like, do they want to buy a car? Do they want to buy a house? Do they want to save for a trip? Do they want to take a trip? Whatever that looks like. But they need to know exactly what they have to do to be able to reach those goals, and KPIs and benchmarks are the only way they can fully understand that. And so I think that's, the best way to handle that, because nobody wants to talk about numbers. Nobody likes numbers, So
I still don't like numbers. What are you talking about?
so, I mean, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to find a team that's going to like that. You're going to have to teach them and train them and help them understand the why.
Yeah, 100%. Just remember this. If your team doesn't understand what the numbers mean, they are never, ever, ever, ever going to care about them. You have to translate those KPIs into language that is going to connect to them. Just like Chandra said, don't just say, oh my gosh, your rebooking rate is super low. You've got to explain how increasing that number is going to lead to more predictable bookings, right? Better guest retention and more consistent income. Show them how, I don't know, tracking retail isn't just about sales, it's about creating the full guest experience. And most importantly, make the numbers part of your culture. When you do that, it's so good. If you talk about them often, if you celebrate their wins publicly and in private and coach them consistently, you are going to be golden. You cannot just drop a metric once a month and expect them to engage with you. It's never going to work. You have to live it, you have to model it, and you have to reinforce it all the time.
Yeah.
All right, Chandra, the next one is, how do I get my team to follow through without micromanaging them? I swear we get this question every single week.
Systems and structure. I don't know what else to tell you. And accountability, but that's part of systems and structure.
I think that's huge. I think the difference between micromanaging and accountability is expectation clarity. It's the only way I know to say it. If your team does not know what's expected, or if those expectations change weekly, which we see with commission salon and spa owners all the time, they are going to feel policed when you start following up, right? But when expectations are clear, when they're clearly communicated, when they're documented, when they are reinforced consistently, following up, it just feels like leadership. That's all it feels like. It feels like a helping hand. That is why those checklists, those SOPs, the recurring meetings that you're going to have with your team, that's why they matter. They create that rhythm, they create repeatability. The goal isn't to ever hover over your team. It's just to create a system where they know exactly what's expected, and you don't have to chase them. You don't have to chase it. Accountability should never feel like pressure. It should always feel like support. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. The next one is, what is the best way to handle a stylist who is super talented, but they are a nightmare when it comes to attitude and culture?
Get rid of them. No. Yeah, I mean, you have to try to work with them, but you can't be held hostage. I think the biggest thing is really putting those systems and processes in place and trying to hold them accountable to adhere to that and to the culture you're building, because those ones can be the biggest culture crusher when you're trying to create something that is, what you're trying to create, whatever, that looks like for you. Those people will definitely crush it if they don't get on board. So if they don't get on board, they can go out.
No, I agree. I think you have to get really, really honest with yourself as an owner. Are you running a team, or are you running a talent agency? Because those are two very different things, right? Skills matter, but never, ever, ever at the expense of your culture. If their attitude is disrupting the team or causing you maybe emotional exhaustion, that is costing your business more than their revenue is ever going to make you. 100%. So the first step that I would take is coach clearly. Don't hint around, don't beat around the bush, don't hope that they're going to get it. Call a meeting, be specific, give specific examples, and give them a choice. They either shift or you separate. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
That's it. If you let one stylist act like they are above your culture, your other team members are either going to shut down or they're going to leave. One person can never be more important than your entire mission. They just can't.
Yep.
All right. We got two more that we can get. We have a ton, but we're going to get through these. Should I post stylist openings publicly or should I hire quietly through referrals? That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think both. I mean, you got to do both. This is for hiring stylists, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you got to put it out there. People should know that you're hiring, but I think you put it through both networks. I always do both.
So I think that's important. This is something that I would say from experience. This is why I love these lives, is because Chandra and I, we think a lot alike, but we do have two different ways of going about it. I think it depends on your team culture. I think if you have a healthy, excuse me, established team and you have a clear system for onboarding, posting publicly, that's good. It can bring in a fresh talent. It can bring in new energy, all of those things. But if you're still kind of stabilizing your systems or maybe navigating some internal challenges, I think referrals are kind of the best way because they can kind of protect that culture while you're building. Either way, the key isn't where you hire from, it's what your process looks like once they come in. So neither way is wrong, but a stylist isn't going to fail because of where you found them, right? That doesn't really matter. They fail when they enter into chaos. So focus on structure first and then kind of open your door. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The last one is I do not want to be behind the chair full time anymore, but I am absolutely terrified to lose the income. What should I do first? Chandra, I'm going to let you take this because you are the numbers queen.
Well, and I was very terrified too, so I understand.
Yes, you were. I had to fight you on this, so I know.
I think a lot of it depends too. Like if you're terrified of losing revenue, like let's say if you're the top producer in your salon right now, you have to really start looking at what you're bringing in. And so you've got to decide, exactly how much money are you contributing and how much money does your team need to be contributing in order to make up that difference of your revenue loss. Because you don't want to just pull out completely if you're the top producer, but you still need to cut back your time because you're not going to be able to build that business that you want to build if you're stuck chained to the chair 24/7. And so definitely see what you can do to start pulling yourself back, even just a day or 2 days if you can, and see what they need to cover. Once you can get them covering that revenue, it will get so much easier. If you're afraid to pull out from behind the chair because you're afraid of your clients, that was more my issue.
That was you.
was having to tell the clients I was going to be leaving because I was doing their hair for like 25 years. That part's just hard, and you just have to rip the Band-Aid off, and you just have to do it. And that's it. All there is to it. I wish I had better advice, but I finally just ripped the Band-Aid off and it was fine. So depending on your fear, there's two scenarios for you.
I think that's great. And I don't think I could answer it any better. I have been through coaching this with so many owners at this point. I think I've seen every single scenario that there is. And this is what I will say. And Chandra, you know that I tell everybody that we coach this. You are way more attached to your clients than they are ever going to be to you. If for some reason you move tomorrow, they're going to find another hairstylist, esthetician, massage therapist. They can say they love you all they want. That's what's going to
Oh,
happen. And so you really have to separate yourself in the same way. You are still able to take care of them with your business running because you have taught your team correctly. So just remember that in the process. All right, guys, we have totally gone over tonight, but if tonight's call made you realize that your new hire structure maybe needs some work, that's okay. That means that you're paying attention, and it means that you are ready to lead in a way that is going to actually be scalable. That's what's most important. And if you want to build like this stellar new hire structure in your salon or spa, please reach out to us. We walk you through this step by step inside of our coaching program, and we help you build systems that are tailored to your business, your culture, and your long term goals. There's a lot of people out there that will give you plug and play advice. That is not what we do at the Beauty Biz Agency. All you have to do is DM us the word hire on Instagram, Facebook, or you can head over to our website at thebeautybizagency.com and you can see our coaching options and even book a free call with our team. So you don't have to figure it out alone. You are definitely not having to guess any longer because you have support out there. Chandra, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off? It's been a long
no, I
day.
mean,
I'm tired.
yeah, I think that was a lot of information. And I think if you take any of that information, take the resource that we've created for you guys and
Yes.
start putting that into play, like you will definitely see some results and it will definitely make your life easier. So I think just, take it, run with it and put some stuff together and start, structuring your business.
100%. One thing that I will say from years and years of failing, for those of you that don't know my story, I went from having a really, really big team and being negative profitability every single month, not paying myself a dime and working probably 70 to 80 hours a week, to going from having a smaller team hitting, $1.2 million a year with, I think, 15% profitability, to an even smaller team working zero behind the chair, uh, over $2 million a year with over 28% profitability. Is you've got to get things in place. You've got to, and you've got to find somebody who can help you get there. Can you get there on your own? 100%. Is it going to take a lot longer? Yes. Find somebody who has done what you are wanting to do, who has been in the business, who has solved every problem that you're needing to solve, and talk to them, see what they've done to actually get that successful. I think that's really, really important. All right. Thank you guys for being here with us tonight. We know that your time is extremely valuable, and showing up for yourself and your business in spaces like this, that is what honestly real leadership looks like. So we will see you guys next month on BBA Live. We are changing the time. It will be 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I get so confused because we have so many time zones, but 6 p.m. Central
6
Standard
p.m.
Time.
6 p.m.
Moving forward, first Monday of every single month. We will see you here on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, go lead your team with intention, with clarity, and with confidence. We'll see you soon. Bye,
Bye.
guys.